Hey, this is Aaron Rabinowitz for CreativeCow.net. In part 1 of this tutorial, we talked about fixing scaling issues with the use of the keyframe assistant called Exponential Scale. There we were working with only a second or so of animation, but when you're working with longer time frames, then Exponential Scale becomes a real liability when you want to ease into your value. In this animation, I'm using Exponential Scale to go from 10,000% down to 100% over 5 seconds. As you can see, at the very last frame of scale, the change of speed is kind of abrupt, meaning it's not a smooth transition from motion to non-motion. In other words, there's no easing in. It just stops moving. Now that might be what you want, but if you're looking to have it settle into position smoothly, you might think that you could just make the last keyframe an ease in keyframe by using the keyframe assistant called Easy Ease In. However, a quick RAM preview and you'll quickly learn that easing in just won't work. Just to be clear here, easing in and out gradually alters a property's speed and value curves over the course of many frames by changing the curve's interpolation between two keyframes. And with every single frame of our animation having a keyframe, changing the interpolation won't do anything because there's no room to gradually change the values over time. At each frame, it just goes from one keyframe value to another, so easing won't work. Or will it? Well, the solution to this is using Easy Ease, but not for scale. Instead, we need to ease time. And to do that, we'll be calling on both precomposing and time remapping. If you're not up to speed on either of these two subjects, I cover both precomposing and time remapping in my podcast tutorial on lip syncing in After Effects, so check them out or look in your After Effects help files for more information. Anyway, here I am back in After Effects with my 5-second exponential scale. Let's pre-compose the animation by selecting the text layer in the timeline and choosing Layer, Pre-compose. I'm going to call the new composition Scale Precomp, and then I'll choose the Move All Attributes option to take all keyframes and other properties with it into the new composition. I'm not going to bother opening the new comp, so you can skip that option. Click OK and you'll see that we now have a nested composition where our text layer used to be. Okay. I want to add some time onto the end of this composition so we can really see things holding at the end. Choose Composition, Composition Settings, and then set the duration to 7 seconds. Click OK to exit. Let's just widen our overview portion here so we can see the entire composition. Okay. Next, let's select our layer and choose Layer, Time, Enable Time Remapping. Or if you're on an older version of After Effects, choose Layer, Enable Time Remapping. As you can see, After Effects has given us two time remapping keyframes. Let's untrim the layer so that it's visible for the full 7 seconds of our composition. Also, if you scroll down in time, you'll see that on the second keyframe, our text disappears. That's because at this point, After Effects is showing us the frame after our last frame of our nested composition. I'm not going to get into why that is, other than to say it has to do with interlaced footage, which has an extra half of a frame, and leave it for another time. Anyway, to fix the problem, move to one frame before the second keyframe and add a new keyframe by clicking on the Add or Remove Keyframe checkbox here, and then move down one frame and uncheck the same box to delete the last keyframe. Alternately, you could just select the last keyframe with your mouse and hit delete. Either way is fine. Anyway, a quick RAM preview and we'll see that nothing has changed. The scale is still happening exactly as it was before. But that's about to change. Rather than easing scale, which we can't do, we're going to ease time. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about easing into a value, what we're really talking about is interpolating the change between two keyframed values so that at first the values change quickly and then as we approach the second keyframe, the change of values slow and eventually stop smoothly. And while the example I'm showing you is an instance of easing into position, it's no different than easing time because, as we've covered in previous tutorials, all that time remapping really is a property with a set of values with numbers assigned to each frame of our footage, and that by changing those numbers, you can decide what frame from our footage should be displayed at a given time. Again, if you aren't clear on time remapping and you haven't watched that tutorial I mentioned, go and do that. It'll clear a lot of this up. Anyway, select the last keyframe and choose Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. A quick RAM preview and it's working. The layer eases into its final size nice and smooth. So what just happened? Well, you see, After Effects is looking at our nested composition as if it were footage. So rather than seeing it as a layer scaling over time, it sees it more like a video of a layer scaling over time. And from our previous tutorials, we already know that time remapping can control how After Effects plays our footage back to us. So when we tell After Effects to ease into the last time remap keyframe, what we're really doing is interpolating between the two time remap keyframe values in such a way that After Effects is playing the first frames of our nested composition faster and then slowing down the footage as it gets to the last frame of our animation. Again, it's exactly the same thing as easing position because all we're doing in both cases is easing into a value. Don't forget, you can get the files for this and other podcasts at www.creativecow.net/AE podcast. Once again, this is Aaron Rabinowitz for CreativeCow.net.